Welcome to the Tech Story Podcast, where storytellers kibitz about technology that makes us go, what's that about? Now introducing your host, Doug Thompson.
In this week's episode of the Tech Story Podcast, I interview Brenda Meller, marketing genius. We talk about how losing her job put her on her current path, how pie became a thing, the importance of the use of color in your profile, and how to make your profile on LinkedIn more snazzy. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Brenda Meller. Hey everybody, welcome to the Tech Story Podcast. I have a special guest with me today. We're inviting the marketing people in the house, so just be okay. Brenda Meller, how are you doing, Brenda?
I'm doing well. Please don't kick me out. Marketers, we like tech people.
I know. I give them a hard time because some of my best friends back in previous jobs have been marketers, and I've had to explain to them, and it goes along with what's the story we're trying to tell, and it can't be generic. In technology, people like to use terms they're very familiar with, and so using a generic term for this persona, we need to get a little bit more special. So anyway, that's a whole other thing, which I'm sure you already know because you're a fantastic marketer and you got a book and all that, which we'll cover. But I promise not to kick you out. So go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my story, if you will, since we're talking on stories, I've been a marketer my entire career. I worked for corporate America up until about 3 years ago. And I was trying to think about where to go next. I had a really great job, really loved it. We had a leadership change, and I was kind of trying to think of where my next path would be. And the universe decided for me. They did some restructuring in the leadership team, and mine was one of the positions that was being adjusted, if you will. And while I was looking for my next job, I started being approached by people. And I think because of the brand I had built up for myself on LinkedIn, and they were saying, hey, since you have time, can you help me with my profile? Since you have time, can you train my team? Since you have time, can you do social media for our company? And I started to realize, maybe there's another path for me that's not corporate America. That's kind of just pulling together this project work and being my own boss. So, fast forward 3 years, I've got my LLC in place and things are going great. So my company is Meller Marketing, and my catchphrase I tell people is I help people unlock the power of LinkedIn, and I absolutely love it.
That's great. And, God puts things in our way to take us down the path that we should go. I've heard that before, and I firmly believe that things happen for a reason. And again, you discovered here's the business. It just sort of called upon you because you found that. So you wrote a book, and I know and I like the name of it, Social Media Pie.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that name? Because we all like pie.
Well, we do like pie, and I actually talk about this a little bit in the book. So for me, I always had the desire to write a book, and I never could figure out what my topic would be. And then once I landed on, I think I want to write this about LinkedIn. It was kind of like a combination. I'd been blogging about things for a while. I've been doing public speaking for a while, and people started coming up to me at events and saying, do you have a book? Can I buy your book? And I would say, I don't have a book. You don't have a book. You should have a book. So, for me, it was kind of figuring out, okay, LinkedIn is a topic. And then how do I make it different? Because there's a lot of LinkedIn books out there. There's LinkedIn for Dummies, and, there's a million books out there about social media. So how do I make it different? I was struggling with it for a while. And I realized, it was kind of similar to presenting. There's a lot of people out there who do presentations. We all bring our own unique flair, our voice, our style to it. And I done the presentation. It was probably about 2.5 years ago now. And I love pie. And this is the first time it was a pie themed presentation. So there would be one slide and it would have a stack of bananas, and the next slide had banana cream pie. And I was talking about marketing elements and social media and how it was similar to pie. And I used a hashtag in the presentation, hashtag social media pie, because there was a presentation about social media. My love of pie was worked in. And after the event, people were using the hashtag, and I was kind of just kidding with it, just using it for that day. And they used it that day. And then 2 days later, somebody who attended the event blogged about it, and they were talking about the social media hashtag. And for weeks and weeks after that, people kept talking about this presentation and using social media pie. So I did what any smart marketer would do. I reserved the domain socialmediapie.com, and I went on the social media channels and reserved the page names for that. And that was really it. But from that time forward, every time I went out to present, I would bring a pie with me. And when I present, I would tell people, my name's Brenda. I love my job. I love my family. And I also love coffee, chocolate, and pie. And pie is this universal thing that when you talk about, I see you right now, you're smiling, it just makes you smile. It's something that's shared. it's not like a cupcake that's like an individual snack, and it's not like a bacon, it's something that's kind of unique. Nobody really owns it. And when I talk about social media pie and when I talk about LinkedIn, I talk a lot about social media karma and how my success, and I think a lot of people's success on LinkedIn, is really built upon paying it forward, helping other people, paying attention to other people on the platform. So it all kind of just congealed together, if you will, like a strawberry pie, right? Yeah. And the topic, the LinkedIn strategy focus of the book, everything kind of came together, and, I felt like it wrote itself, as I was going through the process.
Well, you haven't seen me eat pie, or it wasn't to be shared, because I will eat a whole pie myself. And I'm not talking those personal ones. I'll take one of these big. I love pie. And it doesn't matter what type of pie. But you talked about, and I noticed all the free stuff that and it is karma. I mean, because I coach some people and I give free advice on storytelling and things like that. And it's to help other people. I mean, at the end of the day, my motivation is that if I've helped one person, then with the content or something, then I've achieved something. I've made the world a little better place. And it sounds like Absolutely. You sort of have the same motivation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I'm sharing, even when I'm posting on LinkedIn, I'm not thinking about posting and reaching 50,000 people. I'm talking to one person. Mm-hmm. And if it happens to reach more than that, then that's great. But yeah, if it reaches one person, who at that moment was looking for that exact piece of advice or that bit of inspiration, and it made them smile, I think it's all worthwhile.
It is about timing too, because, I've talked to people who says, I've heard that a dozen times and it never made sense till I heard it from you. Well, I know it wasn't the way I said it. Or my voice or something, but I think it comes at a time where because I've had that happen to me as I've had it and it's not made sense. And maybe somebody put a slightly different spin on it and makes sense and it locks in. So that's why it's important to keep sharing that message. When you wrote your book, did you have one person in mind when you were writing your book? And I'm asking this for, selfish reasons, because I've been told, I do speaking, and I've been told, hey, do you have a book? And I said, well, I've got a coloring book in the back, but please don't judge me for being outside the lines. Yeah. How did you write that?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning of the book, I actually talk about the different audiences that will benefit from it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought it's almost like in marketing terms, we talk about building up an avatar, like a potential person who's your ideal target audience. And I kind of thought categorically about this too. So, there's a group of people who are maybe unemployed, looking for a new job and trying to figure out how to use the platform more successfully. There's the person who works in business development or sales and is really just trying to figure out how to do more selling, how to reach more prospects on the platform. There's the company leader who is trying to get their team to use LinkedIn, but the team is resisting and they can't figure out why. And then there's also this whole category of people like the entrepreneur, self-employed consultants, people who are independent, which you're wearing so many hats. And then on top of all of this, you have to try to figure out how to use the platform to sell, to market, to recruit people to join your team, all these different areas. So, in different areas of the book, different chapters, I'm speaking to one of those. And then sometimes I'm speaking to multiple categories across those four avatars.
So it's somewhat like telling a story different ways for the audience that you're trying to attract or meet. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. But it keeps sort of bringing back to a core message. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this really, it's really about, and I have this title, is called Social Media Pie, and it's how to enjoy a bigger slice of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So it's how do you get the most out of this platform? And I think one thing we've learned over the past year with, everything that's been happening on the pandemic, and events have virtually ceased to a halt, and we're completely meeting online now. So online networking is so much more important, and people are really trying to figure out how to use LinkedIn. And it was kind of interesting at the beginning of 2020, I was like, wow, this is the year for LinkedIn. This is the year for me. January, February, March, I was rocking. I was doing public speaking. I was, really ramping up my business. And there was little, hints of something happening in China, but it wasn't in the US yet. But we didn't think it was going to come over here. But it was even at the beginning of the year, it was already, I think there was a lot of momentum I was seeing in the market with LinkedIn. And there's a good group of people who are, they had a LinkedIn profile, they never really done anything with it, or never got on LinkedIn to begin with, and now they kind of feel like they missed the bus. And now what?
Yeah, I heard a joke. It's sad but true. The worst Christmas gift for 2019 was a 2020 planner.
It's a good one.
Which it was. I mean, so you have to sort of adjust things on the fly. So
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of not keeping my LinkedIn profile tidy with that. I'm horrible at that. So we may have a discussion after this is over. But in the book, you created a story with packaging your book. I saw a video, and it's all in this pink box, and you had somebody else there. You were very excited about. It was really pretty cool watching you unbox. I haven't gotten that excited since I watched my grandchildren unwrap a Christmas present. Well, so what was your concept behind it? What's the story behind the packaging of the book? Because I get Amazon boxes every day, and I don't get excited about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the whole process of writing a book and publishing, I was documenting things. It was kind of like a video and photo library. I was posting on LinkedIn, whether it was a still photo or a video or things, every step of the way. So when I first really started, I found a book publishing coach, somebody who works with self-publishing authors. And once I got off the phone with him and I committed to, the dollar amount and signed the contract and everything, I took a picture and I was like ecstatic, and because I was like, this is going to happen. Now I'm committed to it. Financially, I'm committed to it. And, every step along the way I was documenting. So when the shipment, arrived, the FedEx truck pulled up and the boxes are coming into my house. I mean, I was taking pictures of that and telling people about it later. And as I was waiting for my books to arrive from the publisher, I started pulling my supplies together, the packing materials, the labels, things like that. And I was looking on Uline because that's where you go for shipping materials. And I was looking up envelopes, and you can do, bubble wrap envelopes. You can do manila envelopes, white envelopes. And I was like, bubble wrap, well, I wonder what colors they have. And they have like a bright pink, and magenta pink is like my brand color. Mm-hmm. So I found these envelopes, and I'm showing it to you. I know your folks can't see it, but these bright pink magenta bubble envelopes, I found these. And I'm like, this is perfect, because you do get a lot of mail, right? Mm-hmm. And especially nowadays, we're getting Amazon packages and boxes and everything. But you very rarely get like a bright pink envelope in the mail. Yeah. So when that's coming, something special is inside. And I mean, ultimately, it's packing material. It's just for shipment. You open it up, you throw it away. You're not going to save the pouch, mm-hmm. but it creates an impression. And I think that's an important part of marketing is it's the packaging, it's the experience, it's the story behind mm-hmm. things. It's not just an envelope. This is like a brand immersion experience getting this book.
Yeah, no, it is the packaging into that, and it does it's the covers of the book, it's the covers of the story, it's your first impression when you get it. It gives you something. This is different. This is going to set it apart. So I really like that piece of it, and my daughter likes pink, so I may have to just keep the packaging just because it'd be pretty cool.
But I did have some people, even when I was going through the process of cover design, and I have some elements of pink on my cover, and I had one or two people say it's too girly. Mm-hmm. Men are not going to buy this book. And, I took that feedback and I considered it, and then I decided, no, this is my brand color. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a guy out there, and I'm trying to remember his name, but it's David Randall, I believe, and he's an author and he's a public speaker, and he uses pink as his brand color. Yeah. I mean, if there's a man out there that you can use pink as his brand color, a woman can certainly use it as her brand color, and people are going to either live with it or they're not. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And I've got pink. I've got a pink shirt that I like to wear, and I got some other things. So, I mean, it's my wife had to convince me of that after many years to wear it, because that's not manly. But then it fits my color palette well. So it works.
It works. Kind of nice to wear pastels for a change, right?
Yeah, it works out okay. So when you're talking to your customers about when they're redoing their LinkedIn profile, the old school way was just simply a digital resume is really all it was. It had keywords and stuff. It's not very interesting. But as you said, as you're stuck at home, you want to meet people, you want to learn something about them. I noticed too, you've got the audio piece of that not only gives your name, you have a little spiel. And I know Rob Defford, a friend of mine I interviewed last season, talks about a lot can be said in that 20 seconds that you have, or 10 seconds that you have with that.
10 seconds. So it's a name pronunciation field. And you're Doug Thompson. I'm Brenda Meller. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of people that are saying, is it Thompson? I mean, I occasionally get Mueller or Miller, but it's really meant as a feature for those folks that have a more difficult sounding first or last name. But all of us have it on our profile, so you can enable it. And I think what I say in mine is Brenda Meller. It's like Keller, but with an M. Contact me for help with LinkedIn strategies. So you have 10 seconds. Yeah. it's precious real estate. Like, why not use it? And I do use it for the name pronunciation because I want to demonstrate to people that's how I use it. And it's the same way. If you say, is it Mueller? I say, no, Brenda, it's Brenda Meller, like Keller, but with an M. Like, that's how I would explain my name pronunciation to you. Mm-hmm. So it's a neat little feature. You have to do it on your mobile app on LinkedIn. You can't do it on desktop.
No, that's pretty cool. And also you talk about your headlines. You have an FYI, it's 220 characters max.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how important is the headline?
So the headline is something that follows you around on LinkedIn, and it begins with a process. If you ever use LinkedIn search, like if I go on LinkedIn and I search for technology events, for example, and it pulls up search results on LinkedIn, and I see a bunch of people. The only thing we see in search results, we see the headshot photo, we see the person's name, we see their headline, about 60 or 80 characters of that. And then there's some stuff underneath, what area they're in, common connections that we tend to ignore. Mm-hmm. So as we're scrolling through the search results, the thing that really differentiates one person from the other is their headline. Mm-hmm. And most often people use the default, which is job title at company. So if it's marketing manager at ABC company, marketing manager at XYZ company, it's really not differentiating you. So if you think about it, not just as job title at company, but as a headline. Mm-hmm. And the goal when we think about reading articles online, the goal is to get the reader to click to go and read the full article. It's the same with your LinkedIn headline. Like, make it intriguing and written for your ideal target audience to draw them to your profile where they can learn more about you.
It's a little bit like a trailer for a movie or something like that. It intrigues you, even though it is a short amount of real estate. It's very impactful. And how do you get concise? And that's a challenge I face a lot of times, is conciseness, because I like to add so much color and flavor and texture and background when I tell a story that, I'm like 3 hours into it, and I'm, just now getting to we're just past the introduction.
Right.
But every little wrinkle in the protagonist's shirt. But so I need
I do that. I mean, in my headline, I say, use there's up to 220 characters. And if you look at my profile, like just about every segment of my profile, I have some little tidbit, things like that. Your experience section or your about section is 2,600 characters, and it says that at the bottom of mine. Yeah. So I'm educating people as they're going through, and I'm demonstrating, what those character limits are to help people out.
No, and that's a great way to give back, and it also it's advertising for you, because it sort of shows you what you're doing with the power that you have. When you're working with, have you worked with a lot of nerds? Just the audience may want to know.
Well, I don't consider people nerds. I mean, I used to be a nerd myself, so I don't know.
Once a nerd, always a nerd, Brenda. Come on now, fess up. So,
bookworm? I don't know. I was like a very, my husband kind of jokes because I was like the nearly straight A student in high school and honor society and all that other stuff, bookworm, and, he was, barely passing. So we kind of joke about it, and he's like, who did you hang out with? What is it? All the nerdy people? Yeah. But, I guess I've always approached, whenever I work with somebody on their LinkedIn, it's always, it's the same methodology or philosophy that doctors and lawyers take. I don't discuss, what we're talking about with anybody else. Mm-hmm. And the more information you can share with me, the better I can help to diagnose the issue, the problem, or help to solve, whatever it is you're looking for. And, I'm a marketer, so I get how to take what you're trying to do and put it into the right words and phrases, and how to package it up so that it's accurate, but it's reflecting you in the best possible light. Like, that's what we as marketers do. We're trying to connect you with your target audience and help your target audience to find you.
So we're very much on a similar thing. Is you take what they give you, all this information and stuff, you organize it into a story for them within the framework that LinkedIn allows based on their sort of what their goals are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? So you're the ghostwriter, so to speak. I guess if you had to do that.
Yeah, it's a clever kind of way of explaining it. I mean, I just look at, it's a lot of information sometimes when I'm working through like resumes, CVs, bios, and then I have a questionnaire I have people fill out, and I kind of just boil it down to figuring out, how to explain the person in the best way, but making it sound like it's their voice too. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't look at it and go, wow, that Doug Thompson sounds really amazing. You should look at it and say, that really sounds like me in my best possible form. Mm-hmm. That's really the goal of what the profile is all about.
So in that, when I talk to some very technical people, they may have advanced degrees or something, and they think in that, and I call it tech-splaining, which is my goal to stamp that out, is they get so deep into the minutia of it that they can't explain to me as somebody that maybe is not experienced, in this case here, if you're trying to sell yourself to a recruiter, and there's keywords that they look for and things like that. But outside of that, if you're using your about or your headline, you want it to sort of tell a little story that a normal person would be interested to dig a little deeper. Is that correct? I'm making an assumption here. Was that correct?
Yeah, it is. And what I like to do too, because sometimes I think we all get into the habit. We might go really long on our stories. And I remember like back in the day, I was a copywriter, and we would take information and we would say, okay, just write it out, write the whole narrative first. Okay, then cut the words in half. So if it was, 1,000 words, cut it down to 500 words. Okay, once you've got it down to 500 words, cut it down to another 250 words. Mm-hmm. Then that's the essence of really what you're trying to say without going into a lot of detail and, just rambling on about things. That's kind of what telling your story is about. Mm-hmm. It's like taking it down to boiling it down to the essence of what it is that you're trying to tell people, and putting it in terms that, whether it's, you want to say fourth grade speak or something, like putting it into terms like the average person's going to understand. Mm-hmm. That the average person is going to be able to have a good interpretation that is reflective of what that story is.
Yeah, and it's how would you how would you explain it to a fifth grader? Not that, but you want to make it, like I said, the average person
conversational though, right?
I needed you on my when I did my TED talk. I'm preparing for it. So you got like 12 minutes. This is the ultimate exercise in conciseness to do that, and as a presentation. So when I originally wrote it out, I went in and did this brain dump, and I was really and it was 37 minutes.
Wow.
So then I'm having to like throw this stuff out, and you're right. It was an exercise of getting down. How do I still do this and keep the context and the arc and everything in there? And you do find out that there is a lot of, when you're writing it, sometimes you take tangents and stuff, but it is a good exercise. And what's the core message I'm trying to deliver?
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to work on. What's up next? Have you got another book in there, or and now we're going the social media or the LinkedIn cake, or I like cake too. Social media cake.
They'll only be pie. I'm actually not a cake fan. I never. I don't know. It's like lately, I think the older you get, you're more selective about the calories that you take in because you're going to have to sit.
That's not true.
I don't know. For me, I feel like cake is just so sugary. Mm-hmm. The frosting is just way too sweet for me. So, okay. But it's funny because you get done with I get done with this first book, and I can't tell you, you're probably the third or fourth or fifth person who's asked me what's the next book. And it's almost like being a parent. You have your first child. Mm-hmm. You're holding the first child. It's a couple weeks have gone by, and people start saying, "So you're going to have another?" I'm not even sleeping yet.
Yeah, I talked to Christian Sherry a couple weeks ago, and she's like 9 or 10 books. She's just prolific writer that she's churning out, and I'm just amazed that you can have that much discipline. Because the problem I have is I try to edit at the same time I'm trying to create. They're two separate muscles, and I know that, but I get down and write, and that's anyway. I need to dictate a book and just be done with it. That's why I do a podcast.
To answer your question, I actually have two topics I'm kicking around. One is actually going to be like a photojournalistic book. So throughout COVID, anytime I've been out in public and I see signs on stores or stickers on the floor, cool. Wearing a mask, and there's a sub shop, I think it was Jimmy John's, and they had like how many subs away you should be from people. So anytime I see clever marketing like that, I take a picture, and I've been putting them on Pinterest. And right now it's not going to sell because nobody's going to want to buy a book of signs that we see every day, but eventually this is going to be like documenting our history. And I don't know if anybody else is doing that. So that's one. And then the other is, maybe the entrepreneurial journey, leaving corporate, letting go of what that success looks like, and embracing a new route for success, and being even more, happy than you ever thought you could be. So I think there's a group of people out there that would probably resonate with.
I hear that a lot from people that left corporate and has gone into that. So that's a powerful story in itself, and things happen for a reason. So what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So folks can go on mellermarketing.com, mellermarketing.com. And there's links at the top if you want to learn more about my book or learn more about what I do in terms of LinkedIn strategy. And obviously looking me up on LinkedIn, if you're interested in connecting with me, my default button is follow. But if you do want to connect with me, just go over to the more button. And if you click on that, there'll be an option to personalize an invitation. just make sure that you mention Doug Thompson's podcast, and I'd be happy to accept your invitation.
Yeah, we need to track this and see how it's doing. I like those metrics on there. Typical marketer, you got to get that market feedback.
That's right. You got to know your ROI, right?
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Well, Brenda, thanks a lot for joining us. Congratulations on your book, your first child, so to speak, and the great wrapping that you have of that. And now I'm going to have to go get some pie because now I'm just really hungry. So,
what's your favorite pie, Doug?
Free. I am from the South, so a good pecan pie is really good. I did. There was this season they had this pie cakery or pie caking, which is they made a cake out of 3 pies and all.
Yes, it's cheesecake, cake, and pie.
Yeah,
it's like the turducken.
Yeah,
right.
It weighed like 7 pounds, and I said you could only eat like a little sliver at a time before you go into a coma.
Did you try it?
Yeah, I tried it.
I saw it on Instagram. I keep getting their ads, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks amazing.
It was, but have like 50 people over to share it with you, because that's otherwise.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It is an amazing experience, but that's a lot of calories.
It is a lot. It's very rich, but pie is something that is meant to be shared, and this is something I talk about in my book. You know, it's not something that we really sit and eat ourselves. We share it with other people. And it's interesting, Doug, did you notice when I asked you what was your favorite kind of pie? Mm-hmm. There's always a story behind that, you know. There's a story behind that question. It's pecan pie because I'm from the South, or it's apple pie because it reminds me of my grandma. There's stories behind it. And in my book, at the end of every chapter, I have in my LinkedIn about statement, at the end of it, it says, when you invite me to connect, tell me your favorite pie. Mm-hmm. And there's about, 35 or so people that I pulled that from, and they are referenced in the book.
That's
and
cool.
I'm going to start tapping them on LinkedIn and saying, hey, you're in my book, letting them know that they're in there.
But you're right. There is a story behind that. I hadn't thought about that, but food is probably the one thing that we have that does carry a lot of memories and stuff with it. And, it's the joke of the woman, was serving this ham, and the kids ask, well, why do you cut the ends off both ends of the ham?
Oh, right.
And she didn't know. Says, that's the way my mother did it. So she went and asked her mother and says, why did we do this? Says, I don't know. Let me go ask my mother, which was a great grandmother.
Grandma, right? Yeah.
And she said, oh, dear, I only did this because the pan I had to cook was too small, so I had to cut the end off. but it is that way. And so I appreciate you asking about the pie and everything you've done. You've done some great stuff here. And look up, I connect with her, follow her. She gives great tips away. But, if you need that little extra special recipe pie, then she can help you out with that too. Brenda, thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doug. I had a blast chatting with you.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening to the Tech Story Podcast. And it would really be helpful if you would go out to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast and rate it. Give it a 5-star because it helps other people find the podcast. It really raises the visibility, and it would mean the world to me if you would do that.